Could Tesla reach $100 trillion market cap? That is a question I saw a number of Tesla bulls debating on Twitter in recent weeks. In this video, we'll objectively look at the facts and try and determine if this is a possible outcome or even a probable outcome for Tesla. If you're new here, welcome to the channel, The Paper Bag Investor, where we're always looking for the next multi-bagger investment for your portfolio, trying to find those high conviction generational companies that can really bring huge returns to a portfolio. If you get value out of this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Once we get to 10,000 subscribers, I will be doing a face reveal, so you don't want to miss that. And also, please hit that thumbs up while you're at it. It really helps the old YouTube algorithm. Okay, so let's dive into today's question. Could Tesla reach a $100 trillion market cap? The first counterpoint you'll hear people say about a number like this, just an insanely huge number like this, is that it's not possible. They'll say it's bigger than the entire Earth's economy, so it'll never happen. Blah, blah, blah. When you tell people Tesla could even be a $10 trillion company by, say, 2030, they make these same arguments. They say, oh, that's just too big a number. It's impossible. But let me make it clear to you, people made the same arguments about the $1 trillion mark, this sort of magical number, $1 trillion, before Apple reached it. And believe that people made the same arguments about $100 billion, and before that, a $10 billion company, and on and on and on. So to say an economy will not grow or reach a larger number just because it is a larger number is not first principle thinking, but is really a textbook example of reasoning by analogy. And really, if you look at it, if you look at the world carefully, it's becoming wealthier and wealthier and wealthier. If we look at a chart of estimated GDP over the last 2 millennia, and this chart is accounting for inflation, I'll keep that in mind as well. But as you can see, in the last couple hundred years, it's really just skyrocketed the GDP. And this makes sense when you consider the amount of technological change and acceleration that we've had in the last few hundred years versus most of human history, how slow and incremental that technological change occurs. And if you follow this trend line up, I think it's pretty clear that the world could become a whole lot richer than it even is now. So could there ever be a $100 trillion company? Yes. Will there ever be a $100 trillion company? Yes, I think very likely there will. So now that we've determined a $100 trillion company is possible, can Tesla reach it? And if so, how probable is it? That's really what we want to look at next. So let's look at Tesla's full self-driving ROBOTAXI business, because this is one of the biggest value drivers that we for sure see coming in the pipeline, or likely, very likely going to be coming in the pipeline for Tesla. So if we assume Tesla does reach ROBOTAXI level full self-driving, what would it be worth to them as a company in the future? I did a spreadsheet analysis on the revenue and cost breakdown of Tesla ROBOTAXIs. I'll link that spreadsheet in the description down below if you want to make a copy and play with the inputs yourself. But I set the inputs right now in a way that I think makes all parties happy. Essentially, a price customers are willing to pay for a ROBOTAXI. Also an investment payoff that ROBOTAXI owners and operators would be happy to receive and operate them, and the remaining cut going to Tesla. So this gives us a few key data points. It has a useful lifespan of each ROBOTAXI of about 5 years, if you assume they do about 100,000 miles per year, and they last maybe 500,000 miles in total. These are a little bit conservative, could be a bit higher than that, of course, but we're going to estimate that way. Also say Tesla could make assume they could make about $5,500 per year off each ROBOTAXI. Now, again, I think in more recent years, they could make more money per ROBOTAXI per year, but this is kind of a steady state, future state of Tesla that we're looking at. And then Tesla could also sell the software up front for maybe $10,000 per vehicle. So in this steady state position, if you assume every ROBOTAXI can last about 5 years, and let's say Tesla can produce about 40 million ROBOTAXIs per year, so they scale up to this large production, maybe, couple decades from now. And so then their fleet size at the steady state would be 200 million robotaxis, 5 times 40. And then assume, again, $5,500 per robotaxi. That gives you steady state fleet income per year of 1.1 trillion. Just 200 million vehicles at $5,500 each. 1.1 trillion in income just from your robotaxis. then say they charge $10,000 up front, and let's say then you make about $0.4 trillion, $400 billion in upfront revenue. That's your 40 million unit sales times by 10,000. So you add those together, 1.1 and 0.4, get about $1.5 trillion in robotaxi revenue. And then if you take away some taxes there, you're left with 1.185 trillion robotaxi. And say you give that a PE of 20, the market gives it that value. It's about $24 trillion in that scenario. So by this model, Tesla would be obviously a behemoth of a company, and I really think this kind of scenario is a probable outcome for Tesla, which is why I'm so bullish on Tesla long term. But it obviously doesn't get us to that 100 trillion valuation that we are focused on in this video. But who's to say that there is only a market for a fleet of 200 million robotaxis? Even if robotaxis are 5 times more capital efficient than vehicles today.
So the fundamental utility of a vehicle increases by a factor of 5.
That 200 million vehicles would only be equivalent to 1 billion vehicles today. And there's more like 1.5 billion or more vehicles being driven right now. So that fleet size could be higher, which means Tesla could either manufacture and sell more vehicles, or they could license their full self-driving software to others. So if we jump back to the spreadsheet, and instead of 40 million annual production, say Tesla could sell even 80 million of annual production, which is 400 million sort of fleet size if there's 5 years of life from each robotaxi. And if they're 5 times more capable, that's, around 2 billion vehicles of sort of today's vehicles. So somewhere in that order of magnitude, say they can sell 80 million robotaxis a year. Then it gets us closer to that $50 trillion market cap. Still a lot lower than the 100 trillion, but it gets us closer. And of course, this number could go even higher just for robotaxis if the population of the world continues to increase. Here's a graph of the world's population over the last 12,000 years, kind of like the GDP graph, spiking straight up. The rate of growth is actually decelerating a little bit, but it is still growing. And I think the technology of the world is going to enable more and more people to live healthy, full lives, and the population of the world will continue to grow, which means more people will want robotaxis. There'll be more demand. And so robotaxi fleet demand could be even higher in the future, maybe a few decades out from now. There's enough demand for a fleet of maybe 800 million robotaxis built at 160 million per year. So if I change the inputs again on that on its own could get us awfully close to that $100 trillion valuation that we're looking at. So the robotaxi side of the business, I think, could get Tesla anywhere from that $25 trillion range up to maybe like even close to the $95 trillion range potentially, possibly as the world's population grows further and larger. And then, of course, on top of that business, the robotaxi business, Tesla also makes money and adds value in other business areas, such as the vehicles themselves. They could have a profit on those. They could have a whole lineup of vehicles, of course. The energy storage sales, that could be a huge business in and of itself. And solar sales could be a huge business in and of itself. These businesses together might move the needle several $1 trillion. I don't see them making huge swings towards the $100 trillion mark, but they're definitely going to be adding significant value. By the way, $100 trillion is a lot. These are huge business. I'm talking about swinging the needle a few $1 trillion, not a big deal, but those are huge deals from the business and that perspective. But $100 trillion is just an absurd not absurd. It's totally realistic and I think will happen, but just insanely huge valuation. So how else would Tesla possibly get to 100 trillion besides these few things? The biggest path I could see is if they can utilize their full self-driving perception for more use cases. See, Tesla is, I think they're quite unique. They're building a neural net system that can actually perceive the world and all the details in it. No other company is doing this to the same level of detail that Tesla is. And this could be leveraged and applied in more industries and eventually even to, the Tesla bot. I try to remain a bit more bearish and realistic on the Tesla bot itself, but obviously if Tesla could ever create a humanoid robot that could continue to learn and improve and do more and more physical tasks that humans do, it would be insanely valuable because basically it would become a multi-purpose robot that can improve and get better and that can do anything a human could do, and because it could do anything a human could do, it could possibly replace a lot of the human labor of the world. And this would easily be worth tens of trillions of dollars, if not hundreds of trillions of dollars, just on its own, that the applications it could be put into. Again, to share my honest opinion though, I think the humanoid robot is extremely difficult. We might see a Tesla humanoid robot that could do very limited tasks, maybe like in the next decade, have that out. But to do anything more complex, I think it would take a long time to develop. Doesn't mean it can't be done, doesn't mean Tesla won't do it, but it could be a long time to develop. And that means there's less probability it will actually happen. So to answer our question, could Tesla ever become a $100 trillion company? It's definitely possible. Will Tesla ever become a $100 trillion company? I think there's actually a pretty decent chance they could. If I had to pick a number, I'd say there's maybe a 10% chance or maybe even higher that they will at this point in time. And to be honest, the two most likely companies I could see becoming $100 trillion someday, two most likely companies right now, are Tesla and SpaceX. SpaceX, if they could to dominate space and even do asteroid mining someday, that kind of thing. And a third runner-up I would throw in there with those two would be Neuralink. It's interesting, all three of those are Elon Musk companies. So what do you think? Do you think Tesla will ever reach $100 trillion market cap? Let us know in the comments down below. And make sure to subscribe for more videos like this one. And remember, it's in the bag.